Greetings, Keishalines. Keisha Prime here with another power-up video. Today we're doing Denji, the Chainsaw Devil from Chainsaw Man. He is the main character and everything, for those not aware. He turns parts of his body into chainsaws, like his arms, his head, and his feet. And this all happened when he fused with his pet, Pochetta. The name is just not sticking with me. It's a cute little thing. It looked like a little dog kind of thing, but with a chainsaw nose, and it was adorable. And now it's essentially his heart. And everybody wants it. Still haven't figured that one out, but you know. Anyway, go check it out. It's not too bad of a series, so spoilers ahead, folks. Anyway, with all these power-up videos, I do equipment, general power-up concepts, and super moves. And the first piece of equipment is a custom axe. This could be like a one-off power-up, or it could be something that he gets replaced because he's bound to lose these things in battles, you know, pretty easily. But, you know. So I thought, he's used an axe in training before with Master alongside Power, so I was like, an axe wouldn't be a bad weapon for him, especially like when he's like limited on his transformations and stuff, or just learning to defend himself or having to defend himself in a bad situation. An axe wouldn't be a bad thing to have. Next is an emergency blood flask. This is going to be like a durable flask that has enough blood in it to get him back on his feet, or at least keep him alive should his blood supply start to run low. You know, it happens a lot with him, so as long as it's not getting a direct hit from a powerful devil, I think it'll be fine. Next is a blood transfusion kit with some, like, you know, extra blood bags and stuff. This is so he can get some transfusions in between battles, you know, from allies or fallen devils that he's defeated. And then he can also build up a bit of a reserve so that, you know, for quicker regenerations, but also for prolonged battles. Next is general power-up concepts, the first being karate training. Essentially, I thought if he could learn some of the basics of this style, his fighting efficiency would skyrocket. You know, he'd be able to put more force behind his blows. He'd have a stronger stance, so it's harder to knock him over. He could also be defensive a bit more, you know, so all around an improvement for him. Next is auto amputation. This is a weird ability, mind you. This is basically where he severs his own limbs. Something that happens quite regularly for him, but given that he can heal himself, I thought this would be a good ability to do on his own, considering it happens all the time, so why not just beat the enemy to it? But yeah, this, I imagine it'd be like a chain that just forms around, say he's going to cut himself apart at the waist. So a chain forms around like a belt, and then it just slowly starts sawing and shrinking as it goes through him, and then once it's done it disappears or goes back into his body. And then, like, say if his reaction speed and reflexes are good enough, he can actually like separate the two parts, kind of like Buggy from One Piece, where, you know, like his Bara allows him to separate and avoid damage. Denji does the same thing. Next is advanced chain manipulation. This is something we've actually seen him doing with, like, he does restraints, but also like reins with beam and everything. So like he's learning to use his chains a bit more, you know, interestingly. And Beam even mentioned that like the original Chainsaw Devil like used to swing around the city and stuff with the chains, so like that could be something Denji does in the future. I mean, he's aware of it, so why shouldn't he try it? But I was thinking, like, what if he can make extensions of his like body with them, like, you know, filling in gaps when, like, say he loses an arm. Well, what if he makes like a makeshift arm with it, or they become like a swarm of tentacle chains that are like their own individual entities, and like they can defend him, they can attack people, they can grab enemies and allies, or they can anchor him to the ground. They can, like, if his arm or if his like legs got cut off, they can become legs, allowing him some form of locomotion. So there's a lot that they could do for him, and I just thought what he's done is only the tip of the iceberg. Next is Advanced Chainsaw Transformation. Right now, mostly it is limited to his arms, his head, and his feet. So I thought if he could manipulate this and like learn how to transform other parts of his body or make it partial transformations a bit more adapt, this would allow him to like, you know, conserve on his blood because he'd be more efficient and everything. Because like imagine if he could like turn his fingers, his individual fingers into chainsaws, like when people come to get his heart and then he plays the idiot and it's like, yep, I'm going with you guys, no problem. And it's like, okay, chainsaw, you lead the way. And then like, you know, his back's to them or whatever, or they're following him or something, and he turns a finger into a chainsaw and then he's just they don't really see it coming. So something like that. Next is chain defense. This is inspired by Guriko's chain move from Soul Eater because he's another character that can turn into a chainsaw, so I thought get inspiration from him. He did it like as a kind of like a vest like thing that crossed over his chest and it took a blow for him. So I thought Denji could do a similar thing. You know, he's manipulating the chains well enough. He wraps it around the chest area, the arms, the legs, any part that's exposed, and then that minimizes damage he takes, which then keeps the blood in his body, which then allows him to stay in top form, or at least in highest condition possible. So I thought it could be good, and plus he could even use it as like an alternative form of attack as well. You know, he slams someone with an arm that's covered in chainsaw chains. It's probably going to do a little bit of damage, if nothing else. Next is axe throwing. This is, you know, taking the custom axe I mentioned, and he learns how to throw them with decent accuracy, and it could be a good enough ranged attack for in those situations when he has to use the axe for self-defense and stuff when he can't transform. Next is throttle control. This is where he learns to control the rate of his engine's rotation, which then, you know, obviously makes his chains rotate faster and his cutting power increases. Simple as that. Next is self-start. This is where he essentially like goes more inward with it, and he like can just focus with his mind and start his engine, because right now he has kind of a glaring weakness with this, is because if his arms get cut off, he can't pull the pull cord that's in his chest to start the engine, and then starts his transformation, allowing him to fight. Usually he'll have like an ally nearby, but what about in the situations when that's not a thing? He's by himself, he's fighting somebody, he's lost both of his arms, he can't reach it with his teeth. It's like he's screwed, right? Well, if he can just self-start, you know, internally, like an electric motor in that case, maybe this would be a good thing for him. Next is vibration control. Like with all power tools, even more so with a chainsaw, they produce a lot of vibration. So I thought we could utilize this aspect. And, you know, if he can, you know, amplify this trait, he could do a lot of damage. Like, nerve damage, even to the point where, like, if he holds on to people long enough, you know, like, wraps them up in chains and stuff and then just shakes the shit out of them, it can cause nerve damage with enough long-term use, because that's actually what happens to people. I didn't know that until I was doing some research. So yeah, but yeah, so this would also increase his cutting power, where, you know, because it's going to, you know, make him shake, but it'll also be kind of like a jagged damage inducer, but also could give him like some kind of potential to like driving deeper into an enemy. And also a little bit of a defensive capability as well, because with all that vibration, they may not be able to hit him in vital spots, but also he can, like, maybe with the vibration, like, deflect attacks a lot more easily. I don't know. Next is Awaken Chainsaw. This is basically just like Awaken Devil Fruit users, where they can, like, make their surroundings reflecting of their powers. You know, like Doflamingo, he turned everything into strings, you know, from buildings to the ground itself. So imagine that, but with chainsaws. Denji could add chainsaw-like qualities to just about anything within a certain area. So, like, say there's like a big scenario I have in my head is like, okay, think Walking Dead. There's a bunch of zombies in front of you, and all you have is a car. Well, he could outfit the car with chainsaws on the front to cut down the horde, and then, kind of think like Speed Racer's saw blades on the Mach 5, but then also give it like snow chains out of his chains onto the wheels so that they can go over the carnage. And there you go, something like that. And next up we have super moves, the first being Flail Slicer. This is actually inspired by something that he did against the Bomb Devil, where he like reconnected his newly blown off arm with a chain, and then he could still control it. So I thought if he started to like flail that part of his arm around or something in a similar scenario, or if he does self-amputation, that would give him like a good mid-range attack, but also an unpredictable one, because if flailing around, they may not be able to defend. Next is Lasso Chain. This is where he extends out his chain, and then he just loops it around a target and pulls them in like Scorpion. Get over here! So, yeah. Next is Shred Wrapping. This takes the Lasso Chain idea, but expands upon it. Once he's lassoed someone, he then, can either pull them in or just leave them, with a good amount of slack, but then he starts rotating his chains. And then they'll start being, shredded wherever they are, and, they'll either escape or leave in pieces. Next is Sawtooth. This is where he turns his mouth into saw blades, the chainsaw blades. And I was like, this could be good, when he doesn't have access to his, his arms have been incapacitated or something, and he has like limited transformation capabilities. He could at least use this to maybe escape from, restraints or to attack an enemy. Next is Speed Saw. This one is also inspired by Guriko, like his saw leg technique, where he like had like, I think it was just one chain like on each foot, and it allowed him to like, skate across the ground. So I was like, okay, let's go with that, but also let's incorporate like Denji's like arm saws as well as an alternative, where he can do that with his, and he'll be like a four-wheeled vehicle, like almost a tank, because he'd have like the chainsaw head pointing out so he can have an attack while also, building up speed and moving around real quick, something like that. He'd also be like the Wheelers from, Return to Oz. Kind of creepy guys, but hey, but yeah, something like that. Next is Circular Saw Kick. This is basically, it can either be done as a spin kick or a drop kick. And then he just has like a chainsaw leg, so simple as that. And plus he can also incorporate his karate into that one. And I mean, we've seen him using like different kicks, but I think he could like definitely, with a drop kick, it would be more devastating than just any other kind of like straight kick. But you be the judge of that. Next up is Air Slicer. This is very like generic anime trope style move, but I thought it would be a kind of a cool addition. Like when they do like a sword slash, but it's like with so much power that the air pressure alone can attack a target from a distance. So I thought Denji could do that with his chainsaws, right? So, and then next up would be Quake Cleaver. This is where he revs up his engines, he delivers a heavy blow, and with like the vibrations and stuff added to this, it just carves into a target, going deeper, but with a lot less effort on his part. And finally is Fissure Rip. This is where he like stabs the ground with his saws, and then with the vibrations from his motors, he just tears the ground apart, causing his enemies to lose their footing. Then he can rush in there and give them a good strike or something. But also he could like, stab a wall, do the same thing, and use it as like either a distraction or an escape tactic as well. Because like the debris would fall on them and everything, and as simple as that. But yeah, those are my ideas. Let me know what you thought. Anything you wish to add, let me know. check out my other content, see what you like, suggest things for the future. I links down below for all my social medias, and I stream on Twitch where I do gaming and stuff, and I'll tweet it out when I go live. Part of the One Punch Man podcast on Grim Reaper's channel. Go check it out. And as always, thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, Quiche Lings, keep your chainsaws oiled, kids.